A romantic dinner takes a shocking turn when a racist waiter humiliates a black couple, unaware they're about to become his bosses. What happens next will leave you speechless. Subscribe and comment where you're watching from to see how this story unfolds. A buzz of conversation filled an upscale restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina. It was the kind of place where people came to celebrate anniversaries, close business deals, or just enjoy a fancy night out. Tables were set with crisp white tablecloths, flickering candles and sparkling glasses, creating an atmosphere of elegance and exclusivity. Tasha and Marcus, a young black couple dressed impeccably for their date night, walked in with bright smiles. Marcus held the door open for Tasha, who was glowing in her emerald green dress. This was their anniversary, and Marcus had chosen this restaurant because it was known for its reputation as the best fine dining spot in town. The host at the podium greeted them politely and gestured for them to wait as she scanned the reservation list. A few feet away, a waiter named Andrew stood, his sharp black and white uniform neatly pressed, but his expression was anything but welcoming. Andrew prided himself on his regulars, customers he thought fit the image of the restaurant. To him, Tasha and Marcus didn't belong. He didn't know their story or who they were, but he decided he didn't like them anyway. When the host confirmed their reservation, Andrew immediately stepped forward. "I'll handle this one," he said curtly, grabbing 2 menus off the stand. As Tasha and Marcus followed him to their table, they noticed Andrew's stiff demeanor. He didn't greet them or engage in any pleasantries, something he did for every other table. Instead, he slammed the menus down in front of them with barely a glance. Marcus raised an eyebrow but kept his cool. "Excuse me," he said, his tone calm but firm. "Could we get some water, please?" Andrew didn't respond right away. Instead, he let out a dramatic sigh, as if the request was an inconvenience. "Sure," he muttered, walking away without making eye contact. Tasha looked at Marcus, trying to keep the mood light. "Maybe he's having a bad day," she said softly, though the tension in her voice was clear. When Andrew returned with the water, he practically dropped the glasses onto the table, spilling a little onto the pristine white cloth. He didn't apologize. "You ready to order or what?" he asked, his tone sharp. Tasha's smile faded. "Actually, we'd like a little more time," she replied, her voice polite but firm. Andrew rolled his eyes. "Fine, but don't take too long. We're busy tonight." As he walked away, Marcus leaned closer to Tasha. "It's not just me, right? This guy has a problem," he said quietly. Tasha nodded, her frustration growing. "Let's just see how this goes," she said, though her patience was wearing thin. They finally decided on their meals and waved Andrew over. When he returned, he didn't hide his irritation. He took their order without writing anything down and didn't confirm a single detail. As the evening went on, Andrew's attitude only worsened. He avoided their table, walked past them without checking in, and delivered their food with an audible huff. By dessert, Tasha and Marcus had had enough. When Marcus politely asked for the check, Andrew smirked. "Are you sure you can afford it?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension. The restaurant grew quiet as nearby diners overheard the comment. Tasha's eyes widened and Marcus clenched his jaw. "Excuse me?" Tasha said, her voice steady but full of disbelief. Andrew shrugged. "Just saying. People like you usually stick to takeout." The silence in the restaurant was deafening. Tasha and Marcus exchanged a look, a silent agreement passing between them. They weren't going to let this slide. Tasha calmly stood up, pulling her phone from her clutch. "Marcus, get ready to record this," she said, her voice steady. Andrew's smirk faltered for a moment as Marcus pressed record. "What do you think you're doing?" Andrew snapped. Tasha looked him dead in the eye. "Exposing you." Tasha remained calm, her composure unshaken as Marcus held up his phone, capturing the moment. Around them, murmurs grew louder as other diners took notice. Some began recording too. Andrew's confidence began to crack, but he tried to maintain his smirk. "You think filming me will do anything?" he sneered. "Go ahead. You don't scare me." Tasha's voice was steady, but her words cut deep. This isn't about scaring you. It's about accountability. You think you can treat people however you want because you wear that uniform. Let's see how your boss feels about your service. Andrew scoffed, but now his unease was visible. He spun on his heel and marched toward the kitchen. Marcus stopped recording, but the atmosphere in the restaurant was tense. Several diners approached Tasha and Marcus, expressing their sympathy and disgust over what had happened. Minutes later, the restaurant manager, a middle-aged woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, appeared at their table. Her name tag read Linda. She looked frazzled, but composed as she spoke. "I'm so sorry about what happened," Linda said sincerely. "We strive for excellence here, and this is unacceptable. Please let me make this right." Tasha folded her arms. "What's unacceptable is having someone like him represent your restaurant. A comped meal won't fix this. Your waiter isn't just rude, he's blatantly racist. If this is how you let your staff treat people, that says more about this establishment than him." Linda nodded, her face flushed with embarrassment. "I understand. Please believe me when I say we'll be taking immediate action. Andrew's behavior doesn't reflect our values." Marcus spoke up, his voice measured. "Immediate action? You mean like firing him? Because anything less is just damage control." Linda hesitated, glancing at the growing number of diners filming the conversation. She knew the couple was right. "Consider it handled," she said firmly. Tasha and Marcus left shortly after, deciding not to let the incident ruin their night. But what Andrew didn't know was that their story wasn't over. Not even close. 2 weeks later, the restaurant buzzed with activity as it prepared to open for the evening. Staff moved quickly to set tables and finalize preparations. Andrew, still working there, was his usual smug self. He had been reprimanded but not fired, and he took it as a sign that his behavior didn't have serious consequences. Then the doors opened, and in walked Tasha and Marcus. This time, they weren't dressed for dinner. They were dressed for business. Tasha wore a sleek black blazer, and Marcus carried a folder under his arm. Andrew froze when he saw them. "What are you doing here?" he barked, his voice laced with annoyance. Tasha smiled faintly. "Relax, Andrew. We're not here to eat." Linda appeared, looking startled. "Oh, good evening," she said nervously. Marcus handed her the folder. "Good evening. You might want to take a look at these." Linda opened the folder, her eyes scanning the documents inside. Her face went pale as realization dawned. The papers were legal documents, ownership papers. Tasha and Marcus had bought the restaurant. Linda stammered, "I didn't know the restaurant was for sale." Tasha's smile grew. "It wasn't. But let's just say we made the previous owner an offer they couldn't refuse." The room went silent. Andrew's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He finally blurted out, "This is a joke, right? You can't own this place." Marcus turned to him, his voice calm but firm. "Oh, we can, and we do. Effective immediately." Tasha stepped forward, her gaze locked on Andrew. "Which means you're no longer our problem. Andrew, you're fired." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Andrew's face turned red. "You can't do this!" he sputtered. Tasha tilted her head. "We just did. Pack your things and leave." Andrew stormed out, his indignation failing to mask his humiliation. The other staff stood silently, watching the scene unfold. Linda, still reeling, hesitated before asking, "So, what happens now?" Marcus smiled. "Now, we rebuild. We'll turn this place into a restaurant that welcomes everyone, not just some." Tasha added, "And the first step is training. Real training. If you're willing to work with us, you're welcome to stay. If not, we'll understand." The staff exchanged glances, and one by one, they nodded. The news spread quickly. The story of how Tasha and Marcus turned a moment of discrimination into a powerful statement inspired people across the city. The restaurant, now renamed the Unity Table, became a symbol of resilience and change. As for Andrew, he became a cautionary tale, a reminder that disrespect and prejudice never lead to success. Natasha and Marcus didn't just win, they showed everyone what true leadership and determination look like. And this time, every customer who walked through those doors knew they'd be treated with the respect they deserved.